You can't just build this fan haphazardly. Somebody had to sit and think and see the fan before the fan exists. Somebody had to sit and think about the speaker and see the speaker, design the speaker before the speaker exists. You cannot just build this Yamaha keyboard. Somebody has to sit. Somebody has to be creative. Somebody has to design. Somebody has to plan. All of those components are critical. And listen to me, child of God, you will never be able to successfully do what God has called you to do and live a successful, a fruitful, and a productive life if you ignore the creative side of your person. Everybody has got a creative side. You got to tap into it. You got to become quiet. You got to cut yourself off from the rest of the negativity that's out in the world. You've got to say to yourself, I've got capacity, I've got ability, I am creative, I've got all that it takes. All that I need to do is make the time to be quiet. There's no such thing as the subject is going to beat you and get the better of you. If you will become still, young person, and quiet and cut yourself off from the negative forces and influences in the world, you will find that you've got creativity that's locked up on the inside of your being. And all you need to do, you need to fan the flame. Some of you are looking for a job while you've got businesses locked up on the inside of your being. The thing is, you ignore your creativity. The thing is, you walk away from your creativity. There's some of you that are earning salaries you're supposed to pay the salaries. There is some of you, you're living in someone else's house while you've got your own design on the inside of your being. You got to get still. You got to take time to listen to that voice on the inside of your being. When God started with his journey, the first process he created. God didn't just go and say, let that be like, no. God first thoroughly taught about what he wanted. Think. Work does not start in the physical arena. It starts in the spiritual arena. Physicality emanates out of creativity. Shock you. Take you on a journey. Let me shock you. I don't have time. The person that owns the intellectual property owns the project. Am I right, Robert? The project is outsourced and others are invited for meaningful participation. But the one that ultimately owns the project, it's not the engineers. It's not the project manager. The project manager is working for somebody else. The architect is working for somebody else. The laborers are working for somebody else. The interior designers are working for somebody. When you own the IP, when you allow yourself to be creative, when you stimulate yourself mentally, you own the process. You patent it, it becomes intellectually your property. If you don't own the IP, you eventually end up in fulfilling someone else's dream. That's why you got to be creative. If you don't own the IP, they can give you a designation and call you a manager, but that's all you are, a manager. And they can replace you. Do you get it? If you don't own the IP, even if they call you the engineer, you're still just the engineer. You are one of many working towards the dream, the vision of another. And the lower you rank in terms of your education and your experience, like Robert taught us here this morning, you find yourself at the low end of the equation. This is where you get involved in labor and hard work and toil. Why? Because the idea did not start with you. You don't own the intellectual property. And because you don't own the intellectual property, you become a means to an end. You work towards the fulfillment. You're smart. You wear fancy label, Gucci. But you just, yeah. Say it. Why? Because you don't own the first process, the creative process, the design. You don't own that. And because somebody owns that, he owns the entire process. You are an interior designer. You can't just come and do what you want to. We're going to upgrade this facility. Everything, I had to walk around. I had to think, what do I want? How do I want it? What type of a carpet do I want? What type of seats do I want for your comfort and for your convenience? What type of dynamics do we want as far as animation and electronics is concerned? It's a process. It's a process. And the process, and what do? I go and I sit on the internet and I get architects in, and I said, this is my thinking. This is what I visualize in my mind. Do you understand? Can you put me a conceptual idea together? They come with the first draft, they come with the second draft. By the third draft, I say, all right, I think I like that. The same thing happens with everything else, whether it be the decor, whether it be the bookshop, whether it's going to be the screens. That's in my mind, I can see it already. Some of you can't see it. Why? Because you do not own the intellectual, the creative process is not yours. So some of us are going to be a means to an end until the day you die. Why? Because you shortchange yourself. You believe in other people, their dreams, more than what you believe in your own. I close. The second process that unfolds has to do with the physical aspects and the physical dynamic. God started the creative process, and then he moved on to the next phase of the process, which is the physical. You don't believe me yet, huh? All right. Get the book. Come. Genesis. And I'll close with chapter 1. Listen carefully. Listen carefully.
Chapter 1, verses 1.
Right.
In the beginning,
God did what?
God prepared, formed, fashioned, and created the heavens and the earth.
What did he do? He formed,
fashioned,
he fashioned, he prepared, he created. That was not a physical process. It was a mental process. Read the book. What does he do? Go again. In the beginning.
In the beginning.
Listen to this. Listen to the dimensions. God created what?
God prepared.
He prepared.
He formed.
He formed.
Fashioned.
He fashioned.
And created.
The
heavens.
What? No, slowly. What?
The heavens. and the earth.
Right. Now we want to know, how did he do it? The first process was to fashion, was to form, was to be creative. Now that God knows what he wants, now that God sees his vision, he's now going to take the next step in order to get to his vision. What does God do? Let's go. And God?
Verse 2, Bishop.
Yeah.
The earth was without form
And void.
and void.
Darkness.
Darkness was upon the face
And the
of the
Spirit.
very great deep. The Spirit of God was moving over the face of the waters. And God said,
There's anarchy, there's confusion. Now God is going to go into the next phase. Look what he does. And what does God do?
He said, let there be light.
Go to the next verse. What does God do?
He said, let there be light.
And go to the next verse. And God
there
does
was
what?
light. And God saw that the light was good.
Go to the next verse. And God does what?
And God called the light day. And
Go to the next verse. And God does what?
And God said,
Go to the next verse. And God does what?
and God made the firmament.
He did what?
He made.
He doesn't say. He made. He doesn't. Everything so far, he said, called it into being. As soon as he deals with two things, the firmament and the animal kingdom, all of a sudden now there's a different word that's being used, and it's the word made.